Okay, for this video, I had to like rewrite the whole entire script because I just hated the original script I wrote up. Now, when talks about a new Devil May Cry game was making the rounds, people were wondering what continuity was going to be continued. In hindsight, it shouldn't be shocking that the main continuity was a continuation point, mainly because of how well the players received the reboot. I thought the game was alright. Hated how weapon swapping was handled though. The story was shit, even if we take into account of this being a Capcom title. Even then, I'm glad I got into the series thanks to my friend Loss of Soap. He told me that I should do a marathon for the series, but unfortunately that was when I was in high school. Now that I have an income on my own, I bought the whole entire series. The only videos I didn't do for that marathon was the reboot and the anime. The reason why I didn't make a video for those is the same reason on why I had to rewrite this. I hated, I really mean hated, the scripts for those. And I like to think my writing skills got better, though I had to scrap other videos because my writing skills is not the best in general, like a video on Beast Morphers. And yet I am currently developing a video game. My writing career is not going to be the best. Now, I don't have much to say on the background itself, so let's get into the review proper. The story is alright for what we got. Devil May Cry gets a new mission to take out this Yurzin guy, but unfortunately, they get asses handed to them. The only one of the crew who is still kicking from our understanding is Nero, charging in to finish his job along with best girl in the mobile, Devil May Cry. And the second best intro to a DMC game. Nero eventually runs into newcomer V to my utter dismay. If you want to know how much I hate V, it's pretty much Gnarly's reaction to seeing a Persona mascot that isn't Kotamaru. I like Aegis, but I refuse to call it P3's mascot. Regardless, they part ways, though the celebration is cut short when I had to take control of him. Nero faces off against Yurzin while V finds Dante, almost killing the dude with the demon sword Sparta. Dante figures out who Yurzin and V really is, and so he stabs himself. Wow, I don't really know how performing Harakiri was supposed to power both him and Virgil up. Oh yeah, V and Yurzin are two halves of Virgil. He somehow split himself into these two forms. V being his human side, while Yurzin is his demon form, hungering for power. Dante runs in to kill Yurzin, but he runs off because his preparations are complete. Said preparations was for this apple. He gains power from it, but Dante shows why he shouldn't be fucked with, taking down Yurzin, but not the true evil in this world. V and Yurzin DNA digivolves into Virgilmon once again, and we have a quick recreation of DMC3, though Nero tells the elderly to knock that shit off. Even gaining a new arm because his loving father ripped it off. Yeah. Virgil is his father. Hey, don't look at me like that. I was never the best with this explanation and recap shit in general. Who the hell do you think I am, Morgan Freeman? The story is just alright. The game doesn't really do the whole Pulp Fiction stuff that well. Then again, I can name another game that didn't do it that well. Sorry, I just really hate The Last of Us Part 2. Other games aside, I love that they kept Dante's personality from DMC4, because it's a great balance between how he was in DMC 1 and 3. Though with how the timeline is now, with DMC 2 now being after DMC 1, with the anime now being stretched between the first 4 games, it's a little weird how he just changes personalities at the snap of a finger. So aside from that, it's alright. And the game looks great, even if I'm still in the whole reject realism, embrace the weird. The designs are great. Morrison got a major upgrade, even though I'm against race bending. Then again, this is from the official source, and this design in the anime is just so boring. I don't get why Trish is still in the same exact outfit. She may have changed clothes in the anime, but aside from that, and DMC4, where she disguised herself as Gloria, she's still in the same exact outfit from DMC1, just wow, she'll fit right in with the cast of Power Rangers Megaforce. Then again, she did drop her weapon. I hate how generic Nero now looks. I know he was just a copy of Dante when he was introduced back in 4, but he kind of looks like he belongs in a shooter, and I really cannot drop that feeling. The music itself is freaking awesome. I'm mainly talking about the battle themes. Now, Devil Trigger will never be Outlast Prize as my favorite battle theme, but damn, it's still awesome. Same with voice acting, though learning actor names is a bad thing for me because I keep expecting Nero to call out, "It's Morphin time!" I also expect that when I play Persona 4 or watch random English dub clips of Bleach, so yeah, I may need help. Though I'm not really a fan of V's voice. It's nothing terrible, but it just seems off. Then again, I expected him to sound like Kylo Ren because, seriously, I can't be the only one who thinks these two look alike. Now, in terms of gameplay, I find it to be really fun. The enemies for the most part are fun to fight against, though this seems a tad bit too easy for a Devil May Cry game. Aside from Virgil, while I did come across some snags, I was able to rip through these guys a little easily. That, and was able to beat the final boss first time, which I have never been able to do. On normal mode. Seriously, DMC 1, 3, and 4, I had to knock that shit down to easy to actually be able to beat these guys. And before you mention 2, I beat him with guns. That should never be possible in a Devil May Cry game. In terms of structure, I'm not really a fan of the whole level structure. Not a bad thing, though again, it just brings up bad memories. I am more of a fan of the sort of non-linear structure of 1, 3, and 4. The series originally started out as a Resident Evil game after all, and I don't know, I kinda like running through the same areas. I mean, exploration is still a thing, doubly so with the orbs and secret missions. I'm not big on 100%ing games, but I may at least complete all the secret missions because some of these are really fun. The 5th one comes to mind immediately, swinging around as Nero from point to point. The only weird thing about this is that you have to stand in one spot and align images with the camera to make a whole image to unlock the mission. I really don't get this change because you just had to find the trigger for the secret missions in previous games. Well, unless we're talking about the reboot, but this to me is just an unnecessary step. This is just a minor complaint, but I really don't get it. Boss fights are fun, with my favorite being a fight against Gilgamesh only because of how fun it is to try and stay on the dude's back. Cavalier Angelo is another fun fight, just rushing up to this dude and knocking out his electric powers. Hell, I even love fighting this guy as V, and that's saying way too much because I hate, and I really do mean hate, playing as V. Regular enemies are fine, though encounters can get a little samey because I think they reuse the same enemy groups. I'm not entirely sure, so I could be heavily wrong on that front, but it sure as hell feels like it. The different characters you control are fun. Well, except for the one Mr. Kylo Ren lookalike, V. I don't like playing as him, and anytime the game gives me the choice, I will never pick him unless I lose a bet. He's not as bad as I'm making him out to be, but his fighting style just bugs the hell out of me for one gigantic reason. He's a Persona user. And you may think me being a Persona fan that there wouldn't be an issue. And you'd be right if this was a different world, but my issues with V and his Personas are, well, for starters, the fact that they can't kill. Yeah, I didn't misspeak, they can't kill. Instead, when an enemy's HP reaches 0, they will go into a critical state. This is where V can perform a fatality called a checkmate. This is just V stabbing an enemy with his cane. He is able to teleport to an enemy to finish them off, so I'm at least grateful for that, but I prefer being able to actually kill them right there and then, no extra steps. Next up is that they have separate HP meters, meaning if they die, they're out of commission for a small amount of time, and if Shadow goes down, well, have fun dodging. I don't like this because in a really chaotic fight, I tend to lose myself in the Personas in the heat of the action. And no, having them act on their own at the cost of the Devil Trigger meter doesn't help either. Not a fan of him, probably will never be a fan of him. Now, playing as Nero is still as fun as before, but it's weird not having a Devil Trigger at the start of the game. If you remember from 4, the Yamato was the reason why he had a trigger in the first place, and thanks to Daddy Dearest ripping the Devil Bringer off, he cannot use it again. The Devil Breaker system is what replaces it, and I completely forgot about it. Now, these are replacement arms, like think Automail from Full Metal Alchemist, and you can purchase them in the shop or on normal or lower, find them across the field. I mean, it's not a bad system, and I understand why it's there in the first place, but I prefer the Devil Bringer, which thankfully we do get back for New Game Plus. Though thanks to it, we now have a quadruple jump, and I didn't misspeak, because if you take into account of his air taunt, you get 4, count them, 4 jumps. Now, the special moves you can do with the Devil Bringer is back, and they're still as satisfying as they were before, and having a Devil Trigger again makes things whole again. While card games on motorcycles will still win out, I do prefer playing as Dante, only because the Cerberus Nunchaku are back and I can do shit like this. Now, the reason why I prefer playing as Dante is because of the amount of weapons you can get. Now, me personally, I only stuck with Rebellion, Devil Sword Sparta, Devil Sword Dante, the Cerberus Nunchaku, and Ebony and Ivory. I'm actually shocked I didn't use the shotgun this time around. I stated before that I love using this thing for crowd control, but the crowds weren't big enough for that. I wasn't really a fan of Calian in 3, I only used it for the Arkham fight for these worm things. Just give me Spiral any day of the week for heavy weapons. Cavalry is a fantastic idea, but too slow for my liking. I would have rather driven this thing around and run over my enemies, and again, I just love Yu-Gi-Oh! 5Ds. Dr. Foss is a cool idea, but whenever I used it, I only used it in tandem with a gunslinger style, mainly so I can absorb some extra red orbs from enemies. Other than that, I don't like using it because it costs red orbs to use. Speaking of which, the styles obviously had to come back, and they still work how they did in 4, though this time I can dash way more consecutively with Trickster. I actually did get some more use with Swordmaster, mainly because of the Nunchaku has more elements it can access, fire and lightning to be exact, and the Nunchaku can also turn into a bow staff. I'm starting to think Dante trained with a Pai Shuar, or at least in Gekijuken. I love playing as Dante, though his new Sin Devil Trigger is slightly annoying. Now this is just a stronger version of the regular Devil Trigger, but in order to fill it up, you need to fill up the original meter first. By holding the Devil Trigger button, you'll fill up this new meter, and when it's filled, you have to hold it again to activate it. These two meters are on Dante and Virgil as well at all times, meaning you can have both meters filled up at all times, and I think you can see the issue. Not only is it a really confusing way to fill up the meter, but I think having both can be a little bit game breaking. You have two Super Saiyan states that technically uses the same energy source, but can be changed out very easily, like swapping out a magazine. It's not a good thing in my opinion, and I think it would have been better to force us to pick between which trigger we want to use, or just made us use the Sin Devil Trigger only with just a regular meter running out quicker than usual. I'm not sure, I love using a new trigger for its power, but having both available at all times is just slightly game breaking. Though with Virgil, not really, only because his regular Devil Trigger is just a shadow clone. I don't like this because I hated the doppelganger style from 3, that and I'm just not sure how to use it, nor do I really care. When I play as Virgil, I only use his Sin Devil Trigger meter, which is just a regular Devil Trigger. Hell, even then, when it comes down to weapons, I stuck with Beowulf throughout the whole entire time playing as him. There are exceptions to this rule because I couldn't use it in some of these boss fights because it doesn't work that well with them, but Beowulf has always been my favorite gauntless in the series. Slightly slow, but you can feel each blow Virgil inflicts on some of the enemies. Heavy and powerful, and I don't care that I'm pulling off the same exact moves, I just love using this weapon. It makes this mode worth the $5 on the base version. But what doesn't are the boss fights. Now, keep in mind, when I record games, I always record them on easy mode when available. This is the first time I'm playing this section, and wow, I cannot imagine how annoying some of these guys can be on normal. Part of this has to do with his status as DLC. He wasn't originally playable, so he goes through the same levels that Nero and V went through. Bosses come from all 3 scenarios, but the V bosses don't work well with CQC. I'm primarily talking about Nidhogg. Works well with V, but when it comes down to Virgil, it can make Fisherman's Wife look tame in comparison. I just didn't have any fun with this boss and found it hard to even get a hit on this fucker. It was possible, but I just don't like going up against this asshole. Other bosses are fine, but this one just irritated me. Had some slight issues with both Urizen and Elder Grey on Night, but I still had my fun with these guys. Outside of Nidhogg, I think Virgil is worth the $5. Now, I think the game is fun, but I think it's more of a return to basics because I didn't have as much fun as I did with 3 and 4. Outside of that ball and chain thing from 3 and Die Game from 4. It seems like people really love this game, so I hope we do get a 6th game in the main timeline. Hopefully they improve on what they did in this game and never, ever, ever do V's gameplay style again. For me, it's a good 7 out of 10. I do recommend you to play this. Definitely not as your first, that will always be DMC 3, but I think you should play it if you're a fan already. At this point in time, the base version is available on the Sony PlayStation 4, Microsoft's Xbox One, and the PC. The Virgil DLC is an extra $5, as I already said, but for the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X, it's free with a special edition re-release. Though if you ask me, as someone who mainly sticks to the PC and Switch, mainly Switch, and does own a PS5 and Xbox One, the new consoles aren't worth it. I think I've stated somewhere before that I will only buy a PS5 if the next mainline Persona game is re-released on it. So I think the extra $5 is worth it if you want to play as Virgil. If you did waste your money on the new consoles and don't have the game already, then yeah, get the special edition. This game is a decent return for the series, and if a new game comes out, I'll definitely check it out.
So what's the good news?
Oh, I got a gig. Cash up front.
Cash up front. This I like. The water needs turning on and those toilets need flushing.